Hi students, here we are again with a new video. In this case we're going to talk about plant kingdom. As I said in class, plant kingdom along with animal kingdom will be those of the most common biological kingdoms of all. Now you should know that this kingdom is one of the most diverse of all, and it's pretty interesting to know what's the difference between, for example, a plant and an algae, which are both photosynthetic organisms. Today we will try to figure that difference out. Now, as you remember our classes, we discuss a new branch of biology known as systematics, which is in charge of studying the evolutionary history of organisms. And as you can see over here, we are going to find a cladogram, the diagram that we use to study the evolutionary history of an organism. As some of you may remember, cladograms are generally used for understanding which organisms comes from which other organism. I'm going to use this green color so you can remember everything related to it. The first thing is to remember that in the base of our cladogram we will find like the supposedly common ancestor of all these family or different plants that we have over here. Remember, there are different species, they are not like an actual family. So we're going to start reading this cladogram from the bottom just to the top. Now, as you may remember, the main branch, the one that comes directly from the common ancestor, in this case this branch, will be the most ancient of the organisms of all. In this case, talking about plant kingdom, it will be a green algae. What can we say about it? So green algae are almost every time considered as a common ancestor of modern plants. As we go up into our cladogram, we will find the different categories of plant kingdom. Brown algae, which is also a protist. Remember, in this case, these two divisions will be the interaction or the relationship between protist kingdom and plant kingdom. Then they will have the simplest plant of all, which are liverworts and mosses. Then we will have ferns, some type of plants that you know very well as pines or conifers. Then we will have this other type of plants which are also considered as a living descendant of the past plants or very ancient plants. And then we will have most modern plants, which are monocot and dicots. In other words, the plants that produces flowers and seeds, but they're going to be a little bit different. So as you may remember, this diagram, this cladogram, represents the history of a plant or actual plant. Important things: a common ancestor we have in here, green algae, and as we go up into the cladograms, we will have most modern plants as the dicots and monocots, which are plants that produces flowers. Probably some of you may be asking what's the difference between a green algae or a protist organism that performs photosynthesis with all the rest of the plants or the organisms which are considered plants. As you may know, that both perform photosynthesis, which is the process that plants use and algae use to produce their own food. Well, the main difference will be that plants have an internal system of vessels which transport food and nutrients or water in this case all the way up and down to the plant, which an algae or the most primitive plants of all do not have. So that's the main difference. Now, this vascular tissue, or like the little veins or the tissue that's going to be moving water and nutrients inside the plant, will have two names: xylem, for the one that transport water and nutrients from the soil to the top of the plant, xylem, and also phloem, which transports the sugar produced by photosynthesis to the rest of the plant. Okay, so that's the main difference between a plant and an algae. Remember, algae are not plants. They are most like simple organisms which do not have a vascular tissue. Now, these pictures represent different positions or different places in which we're going to find, or locations in which we're going to find the vascular tissue inside the plant. Now, depending the type of it, it will be grouped inside the stem. If we do a transversal cut of the plant and we see this part inside the microscope, we will see something similar to these three pictures. Now, the hilum and the phloem will be grouped in a different position according to the type of plant. But remember, algae does not have these little tubes inside. They will be, just absorbing nutrients directly from the surroundings, while the plant actually absorbs the nutrients from the roots to the leaves using these two tissues, phloem and hilum. Now, I'm going to present you a little picture that talks about the divisions of the different plants that a taxonomist has classified. But let's make this little consideration. And as if you remember from classes, we know that taxonomy can have 8 or 7 different taxonomical categories, which are here in the top: domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species. And remember, the two last are going to be the ones that form scientific names. If we are talking about plant kingdom, which we're referring us now, instead of using the word phylum in this case, we will use a name which represents exactly the same, but just for plants, which is the concept of division. Now, something easier for you will be to know phylum also is as a synonym of the word division. Now, let's talk a little bit about these divisions. Well, in this case, we're going to see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 different categories, or 10 different divisions. Remember, division is also the same as the taxonomical category of taxa in plant kingdom. Now, something easier for you will be to know that the ending phyte, P-H-Y-T-A, phyte, it's also the meaning, or an easy way to identify that we're talking about divisions of plants. Everything will be ending with this suffix. For example, we have the word bryophyte, which are considered the most ancient of all plants. Okay, here we're having here. Also, we can have the most modern plants in the other side of the category, known as the magnoliphytes. Okay, so remember, in taxonomy, phylums are going to disappear in plant kingdom, and we will have divisions. And remember, actual plants will be classified in 10 different divisions. Now, talking about plants, actual plants, not algae, not a common ancestor, we will have in the bottom of our base, or in this case the most primitive plants of all, the most simple of all, we will have mosses, which are these little plants that grow on very wet places, or with a high humidity places, that we also use during these holiday seasons on something very Mexican that we know as nacimientos. So mosses in Spanish means musgo, and these are one of the most primitive plants of all. Then we will have ferns, which are usually located on very humid places, also like a tropical jungle or a place with a high humidity. And they have a little particularity, which is that instead of producing seeds, they reproduce generally by spores. If you flip out the leaf of a fern, on the bottom you're going to see these little dots, which are structures that contains all the spores that the fern will use to reproduce. Remember, ferns do not have seeds, they reproduce using spores. And we are going to advance into the complexity of the plants. The first one was the mosses, then we have ferns. In our next category, we will have something known as conifers, or in this case, pines. pine tree. They have the particularity that they do not produce flowers as well. They have a different structure known as pines. That's why they are called like that. Next time you are walking through the forest, you will see these structures, and remember that they are the reproductive parts of this type of plant. A little bit more complex than a fern, obviously a lot more complex than a fern, and they do not produce flowers. They have these structures known as pine cones. Now remember, this category are classified, these organisms are classified in the category of conifers. Finally, as the most complex plants of all, we will have the ones that produces flowers, which are the reproductive organs of the most modern plants. Now remember, plants with flowers use these structures, the flowers, to produce seeds and to reproduce by a process known as sexual reproduction. You already know that sexual reproduction is the one that performs or creates organisms with genetic variability, not clones. Instead, they will produce different versions of the same organism, different versions of the same species. Sexual reproduction. The important thing in here is that you remember that once the flower is pollinated, in this case, for example, imagine a bee taking the pollen from this structure into the female part, which are just in the middle of the flower, the next things will happen. The lower part of the flower will start to engorge, or will start to get bigger, and inside we'll have little structures that you know very well, which are considered as the babies of the plant, in this case seeds. So do not forget that inside every fruit we will have seeds that will create a new little plant. Not a clone of the first one. It will be a different organism with genetic variation, because flowers and fruits and seeds, they all come from sexual reproduction. Okay? So remember that very, very clearly. Flowers are used always to make or perform sexual reproduction and produce seeds. Now, as we discussed in class, plants are organisms which can't move from place to place. In other words, they do not have motility, but actually they can react to different stimulus and have a different type of motion. Instead of walking to place, obviously plants can't do that. They're going to react to different stimuli with some sort of movement. If the plants are reacting to gravity, then the reaction will be known as gravitropism. In this case, the plant can sense where is the gravity pull and push the leaves and flowers and stems toward the air, or in other words, in an opposite direction from gravity. If plants are reacting to light as a stimulus, they're going to feel that stimulus, they're going to feel the light and grow towards it. That will be another type of movement known as phototropism. Finally, if the plant is reacting to the touch or to being very close to another organism, the reaction will be known as stigmotropism, or in other words, the response to the touch. For example, a Venus trap, a flycatcher plant, will be reacting to the touch of the fly that goes inside here, and it's going to start a very, very quick process of reaction, which you already know as closing the leaves to eating the plant. Now we have this also example, this plant that it's like a runner, or the plants that grow over the walls, which can feel what is the nearest structure inside, or beneath it, and start crawling at it. Also, we have this very extreme example, which is a plant that can feel the touch and close the leaves very, very quickly when they feel the touch of an animal or an organism or something that just passes by. But remember, plants do not have an actual or an active motility. They are going to move by different stimulus, like the gravity, like the light, or also the touch. Well, I hope that you have enjoyed this video. It's just a very short summary about Plant Kingdom, and if you have any other doubt, remember there's a lot of information in your student book or also on internet. I hope you have enjoyed it, I hope you have liked it, and we'll see you soon. Goodbye.